All right, well, welcome back to our continued modules on the basics of residential green construction and renovation. In our last module, we covered water efficiency, water conservation, and in module 6, we're going to be covering place. Place essentially is about having a sense of place, understanding where the project you're building, designing, occupying, developing is, the location that it's in, and then understanding, how the project can have either a negative or positive impact on the regional economy, the local economy, what kind of climates you're dealing with, microclimates you're dealing with, as far as how to build, what kind of local resources there are available, both as far as materials, and then also resources and community resources for the occupants of the structure to access throughout the lifetime of the building, and then having an understanding of the actual location efficiency and how sustainable it is to get around the community with either alternative transportation, biking, walking, you name it. So one of the things I wanted to start out with is this concept of location efficiency, and the idea is that there's been studies showing mortgage defaults occur at higher rates with poor location efficiency. So you can take a look at more information on that study, but the basic concept, just like we discussed in our energy session, if people have to spend more on energy, whether it be heating and cooling the building, or whether it be having to travel to where they need to go from the home or the building, that's less money that they have, and more of an opportunity for mortgage defaults or other issues that can occur. And so having a better location efficiency with your project, if you can control it, does have a direct economic value to it. You can also see that there is a demand. So this is a little bit blown up here. You can check this out on the National Association of Realtors website, but you can see that second to energy efficiency across all age types for the most part, besides getting into your 60s, you can see that second to that is commuting costs. So it's very important to buyers looking to purchase a new home or new location to have just under energy efficiency, having location efficiency, reduced commuting costs. So one of the things that help measure that is the walk score. This program is used for many things, such as green building points, also helping collect points in some of the green building programs, as well as low-income housing tax credits. And so, when you're working with your clients, having a good understanding of where their project is or where they want it to be, what the walk score is, how bikeable the community is. This also helps pull in bus routes and bus maps. And then the other interesting thing about this tool is that it can be used to, again, just help understand what resources are around in the area. So being able to count, how many restaurants, grocery stores, churches, so that way you have a healthy diversity of resources, which is another thing that the score takes into place. So that's on walkscore.com, and you can check that out for your project and your client's project. The other thing that's really important about a place is having access to nature, especially even in more urban settings, but even in suburban settings, just because you can get outside doesn't mean you have access to nature. So, having a location that is close to a park that's accessible and open, a lake, a waterfront, bike paths, a place where people can go and be quiet and disconnect from urban life or even busy life is very important for mental health and well-being. And so there could be opportunities in the place that you're developing with your client to preserve or protect or develop a natural place, something that you could help influence if the project deems it's important. Getting into this too is the idea of most green building programs is to not introduce any invasive plants into the community, and then if you want to go above and beyond, is actually removing invasive plants during the landscaping plan. Invasive plants, use up a lot of water for the most part, not always, and then can also spread very rapidly, taking over other locations. Of course, that's all very subjective based on the plant, but the whole concept is to get with your local university or extension, figure out what's invasive, avoid planting it, and then if possible, for the sustainability of the site, removing it. So again, to go to the next step is to look at planting both either native or adaptive or drought-tolerant plants, especially plants that can absorb water very quickly, prevent flooding, that can help stabilize the area, that can be used as rain gardens or areas that collected water can go into to prevent stormwater runoff. Also, these types of setups could be designed for wildlife refugees, butterfly gardens, bee gardens. There's whole wildlife certifications that backyards and front yards and areas that can get that again can help stabilize our wildlife bug populations or animal populations that have declining areas that they can access, and so it can be very beneficial in many different ways, from reducing demand of water, reducing demand of fertilizers, cutting grass, having to constantly cut the grass, which adds a cost, and then adding value to preserving ecosystems by using native and adaptive plantings. Other concepts are incorporating, especially in more urban areas, permeable paving systems, as well as, again, drought-tolerant, or what other terms like zero-scaping. So again, so that water can get through the pavement and into the ground and recharge the aquifer and not be diverted to a storm sewer, which can be very costly for municipalities, cities, or lead to flooding down the road. Having a sense of place, this kind of jumps into the materials sections a little bit. So when you're thinking, we've discussed durability and longevity of the project. So again, having that sense of place is understanding what you're dealing with as far as moisture, climate. So having a climate resiliency plan. More and more cities are doing climate resiliency plans, which are discussing what sort of temperatures you can be expecting, how much rainfall you're going to be expecting. So for example, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we expect, as the future goes on, more rainfall during the winter, less during the summer. So what kind of impact does that have when we're planning buildings? Looking at radon zones when you're building, termites, bugs, storms, even depending on where you're at, UV radiation and how that might impact the building. So having that understanding of, where your project is and how you can design it to prevent the elements from coming in. Back in 2013, there was some major flooding in Boulder, Colorado, and most of the green building programs that we look at actually recommend avoiding, if possible, the 100-year floodplain. They either require it or say, you can't use it, can't build in it. So the whole idea of this floodplain is that every 100 years or so, that area is more prone to flooding, and so that could obviously destroy or damage the building. But there's also something called the 500-year floodplain, and you can see in the lighter blue areas here where parts of the city was impacted by the 500-year floodplain. So again, just considering when you are working with your clients to build a new project or even renovate, ask, are you in a 100-year or 500-year floodplain? And, is there a way you can design the building to either avoid that, stabilize it with plants, trees, or essentially perhaps abandon that area and avoid it altogether to avoid major economic loss. So before you build, again, considering prime farmland, want to avoid that. Greenfield versus Brownfield. Greenfield is undeveloped, completely natural, or hasn't been developed for a while. So this sense that we're running out of our Greenfield, and so thinking about, is it completely necessary to build or develop on that Greenfield? Is there a place that could be better suited, like potentially brownfields, which can lead to tax credits. Brownfields are basically fields that have been polluted in one way or another and need to be remediated. And so there's some unique ways and some partnerships that you can establish with cities and nonprofits to find funding to remediate brownfields. Looking at infill, so the idea of infill is building connected somewhere between 25% to 75% of the existing lot already has lots attached to it. So trying to, again, avoid using up prime land. Trying to avoid urban sprawl or adding too many residential units to an area that's already chock full of residential units. Again, those things can help decrease walk score, decrease community resources, and increase the travel time that people need to get, thus adding to the cost and poor location efficiency. And then again, threatened or endangered species, do those exist on the lots? Blocking rights to nature, so putting up a building or a multifamily building that could potentially ruin the sunlight that is going to another building, whether used for solar, natural lighting, or natural ventilation. So considering everybody's access or rights to nature with your project. And then again, just, is it possible to renovate an old existing structure with your client versus building on a new greenfield lot? All those things that we ask just to consider from a place-based sustainability standpoint. So another concept is the project that you're doing, whether it be a renovation, remodel, or new build, does it fit and complement the community? Does it make it a better place? Does it fit in the pattern of the community? Other people would take this to ask, is it a beautiful project? Does it add value? And so that's a question, it's a very subjective question, but it is a question that we always ask green builders and designers to consider with their clients before moving forward, just to think that one through a little bit more. And then getting a little bit further into social justice, the whole idea of working with other organizations that have policies in place that that are construction firms, design firms, even where you're sourcing your products from, that ensure diversity in the workforce, living wages, benefits, equity, safety, sustainability, transparency. And so here's a program called JUST that that can help verify organizations that do that. It's just a race to the bottom when we see contractors and subcontractors getting paid very little for what their work is. Another thing is that can lead to more shoddy workmanship, and it gets very hard to build high-performance, sustainable green buildings when people are asked to do a job and aren't paid at their value. So I think green building is getting into the aspect of asking those questions. Is it a just organization? Does it have these metrics in place? And are people who are on the project getting paid a fair and living wage for the area and community in which they're doing that project? And so I challenge anyone who's in a leadership position or is working with design construction firms, development firms, to consider that. And there's tools out there like the JUST social justice label that can help you put those kinds of things in place, and then even label your organization as such to be identified that way. All right, so that concludes our place, having a sense of place, and so we're going to jump into green building certifications and labels in our next session. See you then.